And now I want to go to 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, Senator Bernie Sanders. And Senator, I appreciate your time tonight. President obviously getting ready to go on stage there in Orlando, launch his campaign. You're planning to deliver a live response to his event tonight. What will you say?
Well, I'm going to make a guess, and maybe I am wrong. But here's what my guess is in terms of what the president will not talk about tonight. I have the feeling he's not going to talk about the fact that he tried to throw 32 million Americans off of the health care they have. He's not going to talk about the fact that in his recent budgets, he proposed massive cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and to Social Security. He probably won't talk about his tax reform bill, where he promised the American people that it would not benefit the wealthy, and in fact, 83% of the benefits over a 10-year period go to the top 1%. And let me make another prediction. I bet he doesn't talk about climate change, which the scientific community calls the greatest threat facing our planet. So those are some of the things he won't talk about. What he will talk about, I am sure, are undocumented people in this country and demagogue that issue.
And those are the issues you focus on later on tonight. Look, I don't know if you just heard the reporting there, Senator, but part of the reason he's in Florida is because he likes going there a lot, but he is concerned about the polling data there. We all know he cares deeply about polls. He's watching them closely, whether he admits it or not. And he's losing in Florida, according to the Quinnipiac poll, to you, to Joe Biden. Joe Biden talked about polls today, and he said, quote, "There's a target on my back," referring to other Democrats. Is that fair? Are you aiming for Joe Biden right now?
Not a target on anybody's back. I mean, I think the good news is that virtually all of the recent national polls has Biden and myself way ahead of President Trump, in some cases double digits, and I think that's good. But, this is, a long, long time before an election, so we shouldn't put too much credibility into polls. But I think Trump understands, and he's beginning to panic a little bit, that he is in trouble, that his agenda, his personality, his racism and his sexism and his overall bigotry is not what the American people feel comfortable with. So
Senator Elizabeth Warren, as you know, has been rising in the polls. It's been getting a lot of notice, right? And in the Florida poll, you and she are locked in a close race for second. You're at 14. She is at 12. Biden advisors tell CNN they're keeping a close eye on her rise, but they think that her rise is coming from you. So every point she gets comes out of your number, not his number. Is Warren's gain coming at your expense, Senator Sanders?
Erin, you sound like somebody in the media, this is not to me what's important. I'm going to run my campaign. Senator Warren will run her campaign. And I think what the evidence will show is that I am, in fact, the strongest candidate to defeat Trump. I think we can win big in Michigan and Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania. And I think we'll win because the issues that we are fighting for are issues that the working families of this country will respond to.
Yeah.
I oppose many of these disastrous trade policies. I opposed the war in Iraq. I opposed the Wall Street bailout. And I think people in the Midwest and all over this country will agree with me.
What I'm curious, the reason I asked the question, though, is that I'm wondering whether you think there's a cap on support from the progressive left, right? That there's only so much. So that's this whole comes at your game.
That's a fair question, but let me respond in this way, and I think often the media gets it wrong. If you are a working person and you're working longer hours for low wages, and you can't afford prescription drugs, you can't afford to send your kid to college, you're worried about your parents, or you're worried about your own retirement, are you necessarily a liberal or progressive? You're not. You're just one of the majority of the American people who are living paycheck to paycheck, who are, really struggling in this economy. So I think, my universe of support are the vast majority of working people who are getting screwed over by the economy. The truth is that for the last 45 years, the average American today has not seen a nickel more in real wages than he or she got 45 years ago. That's pretty crazy. And meanwhile, there's been a massive transfer of wealth from the working families of this country to the top 1%. Now, you don't have to be a liberal or a progressive to understand that. All you do understand is that in the richest country in the world, you are entitled to a decent standard of living.
So you said you're going to be talking about immigration. He's going to be talking about immigration tonight as well in a different way. You tweeted today calling his threat to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, right, which he said he's going to start doing next week. Outrageous. But I wanted to ask you about something else that came from someone who you have obviously shared a lot in common with, Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She talked about the president's detention of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, particularly where some of these people are being housed. And here's how she described it.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border, and that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps.
Senator, you have talked about how your father's family was wiped out in the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. Concentration camps mass murdered them and others in gas chambers. Are you comfortable calling detention of migrants on the Mexican border concentration camps?
I didn't use that terminology. You know, and again, I have a lot of respect for Alexandria. I think she's doing a fantastic job. What I will tell you is that we are locking up children in deplorable conditions. I mean, keeping kids there for weeks in places that are not meant for kids, where children are being traumatized. And that is absolutely unacceptable. We need in this country comprehensive immigration reform. We need to deal with the 1.8 million young people in DACA and get them legal status. And we need to move toward citizenship, a path toward citizenship.
But you don't use the word concentration camps.
No, I have not used that word. I have not used that word.
Before we go, Senator, I want to ask you about Iran, which I know you are speaking out on. You said earlier today that you don't accept the administration's claim that Iran was behind the attacks on 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman.
What I said is that attacks on oil tankers need to be thoroughly investigated, and that's what we need. I also said, and repeat right now, that the worst foreign policy errors in the modern history of this country came when we got into the war in Vietnam, when we were lied to, the American people were lied to about the so-called Gulf of Tonkin, and when we were lied to about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I think the American people should be very, very careful about taking anybody's point of view in terms of Iran.
I completely hear your point. I'm just curious because obviously, Pompeo has said the CIA concluded that, and there's been nothing to refute that they concluded that. The CIA also, of course, concluded that the Saudi Crown Prince was responsible directly for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. So do you also think that one deserves investigation like the president is doing, or do you accept the CIA in one case and not the other?
You know, Erin, what does the owner, the Japanese owner of the tanker say?
They say not enough evidence produced by the U.S.
Yeah, that's the owner of the tanker. And I don't know that they have any particular motive for coming up with that position. They don't agree with what Trump said. All that I'm saying is you need an independent investigation. And this is what I will also say, is that I happen to believe that if the United States went to war against Iran, attacked Iran, it would be an horrific mistake. It would make the war in Iraq look like a cakewalk. And I will do everything that I can, A, to prevent that war, and B, we need the American people to tell Trump that he does not have the constitutional authority to go to war. That is the responsibility of the Congress, not any president.
All right, Senator Sanders, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, Trump's nominee for defense secretary resigning amidst revelations of violent domestic incidents.